thanks so much for joining my channel today. Today's afternoon boba coffee series. And it's just like a podcast where I just talk about different areas of interest and specifically things that will help empower other people based on the experiences of myself or others, and just really sharing some interesting stories. So thank you so much again for joining, and take a sip. So today's topic is actually about a concept called overworking. I don't know who's heard about it yet. Has anyone? There's probably a lot of videos on this already actually on YouTube, but ultimately from my experience and how I think of it as a millennial and somewhat older millennial is that generally the younger generation has realized like an incredible opportunity has arisen, right? Not just the younger generation, people who are millennials and even probably like one or two boomers as well, have realized that with the remote working and COVID, one of the greatest things that we've been able to achieve as part of humanity in like a blue collar tech worker job is that you can actually work remotely, and that means that you could do two jobs, right? So the whole concept of overworking is that you can have 2, 3 remote jobs that you do entirely from home. And sometimes, you know, you'd have to be on the phone at the same time. And I was talking to 2 young people who are actually and actively doing this right now. And so what they do is they only put one job on LinkedIn that they believe is more prominent or a better company or whatever the reasons are. And, you know, a lot of people don't update LinkedIn anyway, so there's no weirdness if from other colleagues if they're like, oh, I just saw your LinkedIn and like you don't have the company that we're working on together. And so they just you know, there's a lot of different ways of thinking about this, and I think from my perspective I was really impressed actually. I know that's kind of hard to say. I think if a boomer or somebody else who's a bit older than me is watching this, they might not be as open-minded to this concept, but hey, it's a completely brand new world. We all went through the pandemic. Every single person on this world suffered in varying degrees. It was a really traumatizing time for so many people, and so I think this is one interesting thing that came out of it. I think the good thing for most people is that it has led to more of a hybrid work experience or remote working experience. There's very, very few companies that are requiring people to go in 5 days a week, although there are definitely some, like my brother-in-law's biotech company, because they have to, you know, work every day on site. But for the vast majority of people, or like hospitals or those kinds of things, but people who are doing jobs behind the desk don't necessarily need to be in an office setting, right, to do their job. And so this concept of overworking really like blew my mind. I was so interested in learning more about it, and just so it like piqued my interest. I was really mesmerized by how they did this, because I was like, how do you do, like, what if there's meetings at the same time, you know? And so the young person was like, oh, well, I'm just on the phone in both calls and I mute myself for each one, and once they ask me something I'll respond. So that was kind of interesting. So she's literally sometimes on the call on two separate calls for 2 different companies at the exact same time. And so on LinkedIn, they only post one, if they post at all, about which job they're working on. And so what their strategy is that after 3 months of working at a job, you get your feet wet, you kind of understand what's happening, what's required of you, what you need to do. You start job hunting again for the second job. And the reason why they're doing this is they're trying to double their salary, double their income, and increase their knowledge and skills and up-level themselves as quickly as possible so they can leave the corporate market as quickly as possible too. So there's some things that they said that were really in line with how I think as well. I'm not necessarily promoting overworking. I think it is incredibly tough to do, but you know, why not? Like, you only have one life to live, and so if you're gonna go into the corporate track, like most people end up doing, you're always trading your time for money, right? And so I think for some people, if they're healthy enough, if they're physically fit enough to do 2 remote jobs or 3 even, like, why not? Who am I to say that that's wrong, right? So yeah, so both of them were doing this actually, but one ended up doing his own business in the crypto sector and killed it, did really, really well. So they, you know, they both already think differently. They just bought their own home together. They're doing remarkably well. And it was just so fascinating to learn from them and hear about how they're really making this overworking concept work for them and work in their favor, because they don't believe in corporate loyalty at all. They don't believe that, we all say like it's a family, we're all really there to collaborate and help each other, but when push comes to shove, or when there's a recession, or when things go bad, or you make a major mistake or something, obviously they have grounds to fire you. And especially in California, it's an at-will state, so any employer can fire you at will at any time. You as an employee can also leave at any time. So in that sense, there really is no loyalty, even though people say there's loyalty, right? And people talk about loyalty, and people want loyalty, because as human beings, we want to feel connected. We want to be part of a community, and if that's the corporation, that's fantastic. But at the end of the day, these young people had a more pragmatic mindset, let's say, that there is no such thing as true loyalty. So you just have to learn from all these experiences, meet these amazing colleagues, and gain as much as you possibly can, while also contributing as much value, but ultimately not feeling, and then, if you lose a job, if you have two, no big deal, right? Because you still have income coming in, and it's not so bad anymore. Whereas like some people, let's say I have some colleagues, we were all laid off at the same time. They have 3 kids, they're the main breadwinner, and they have some credit card debt, and they have to pay for a mortgage, right? So if you lay me off, that's incredibly devastating, right? But that's exactly what happened. That person was laid off. And so what did he do? He immediately found a job. And then he also got he's actually started his own LLC to work on a part-time contracting job as well for one company specifically. But he just needed to make ends meet. He needs to make money. He needs to get it done quickly. So it might not be his dream job, but at least he is working, he's happy enough, and he's helping his family sustain themselves, right? So there's just a lot of unique scenarios. Everyone's in very, very different circumstances, financially, emotionally, physically, I would even argue spiritually. So I'm not promoting overworking as a concept, but really trying to like open your mind about looking into it and doing your own research and seeing if that's like something for you. I think, if corporations saw this video, especially with some older folks, they might not enjoy listening to it. They might not agree with me at all, but ultimately it's about expanding our horizons and seeing what's out there, seeing what's possible. Life is not just one way. There's no one way to do life, and that's the same for corporations. You don't have to go up the corporate ladder and become a CEO of a Fortune 500 company. There's many, many ways to live life. And so I just thought it was a really interesting concept. I was very mesmerized and very fascinated by it. I wanted to share it with you guys today. So thank you so much for watching, and hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you. Bye.